Here's the mental model shift that separates people who burn out in 6 months from the ones who are still quietly making serious money 5 years later. Stop thinking about YouTube like it's an Instagram or TikTok or Twitter. Those platforms are feeds. Content lives for a day, maybe a week, if you're lucky, then it's gone. Everyone is obsessed with posting frequency, staying relevant, riding the wave of whatever's trending right now. YouTube does not work like that, at least not the kind of YouTube we're talking about. YouTube is a hybrid of a search engine, a recommendation engine, and it behaves way more like a library than a social feed. People don't come to YouTube to scroll endlessly, hoping to get lucky. They come looking for answers, for understanding, for the best explanation of something that matters to them. And once they find it, they don't throw it away. They keep it. They come back. They watch the next one, and then the one after that. The winning move is brutally simple. Pick a topic that actually has some real, sustained human interest, something in a reasonably broad industry, and then make the single best possible documentary-style video about it. Best does not mean Hollywood-level editing, cinematic drone shots, viral thumbnail wars. It means the clearest, most compelling, most honest story that currently exists on that subject. The one that actually explains it better than anything else already out there. When you do that consistently, you are not posting content, you are stocking a library. Every video is a book that sits on the shelf forever. Some books get checked out constantly. Some sit quietly for months and then explode years later, but none of them disappear. Over time, the library itself becomes an asset. A viewer lands on one video, watches, sees the sidebar, clicks the next one, then another one, and then another one. So they're not here because you posted today. They're here because the whole collection is useful. That's how real compounding happens on YouTube. Nothing through endless novelty, but through accumulated depth. Once you start seeing China through this library lens, a bunch of things that used to look mysterious suddenly make perfect sense. Take a channel like Fall of Civilizations or similar history collapse channels. Structurally, it's almost boringly simple. Just a steadily growing collection of long-form documentaries on different civilizations that rose and fell. No over-the-top personality, no weekly reinvention, no trend chasing, like whatever is working right now. Just one coherent idea executed over and over with real care. And because each video is high quality and complete, they cross-pollinate. Someone obsessed with the fall of Rome naturally wants to know more about the Mayans or the Bronze Age collapse, so they keep watching. The catalog literally sells itself. Another perfect case, some of the big public broadcasting style channels that just upload old television documentaries, Frontline PBS. These are the anti-YouTube channels in every way people usually think about growth. Editing is often very basic. Pacing feels slow compared to 2025 standards. Thumbnails are very rarely clickbait, and they don't post every day or even every week. And yet, a small handful of their videos, maybe 10 or 20 in a catalog of hundreds, even thousands, quietly generate millions of views every single month, year after year. I think for this channel, it gets about 8 million views per month from its old catalog. Think about that. Think about having 8 million views per month consistently. Why? Because the information is dense. The stories are complete and well told. The topics don't expire. They don't need to grind daily uploads. The catalog does the heavy lifting. The platform eventually finds the audience, not the other way around. That is what evergreen plus quality plus depth looks like in practice. Now let's look at the dark side, because most channels don't die because they're terrible. They die because they painted themselves into a corner they can't escape from. These are the two main ways this happened. First, news-driven or trend-chasing content. Channels that live on daily crypto pumps, election drama, celebrity scandals, whatever the current outrage cycle is. These can grow fast, sometimes very fast, but they almost always stall or collapse just as quickly. Why? The topics are temporary, the audience gets fatigued, and tomorrow someone else will cover the exact same story with fresher takes. Your videos become instantly replaceable. There's no lasting value, no reason for anyone to come back in 6 months. So if the catalog model is the winning play, how do you actually build one? Topic selection is not a growth hack, it's a longevity decision. If you want a channel that functions like a real business, not a side experiment, you have to think in terms of evergreen assets. Evergreen means, will someone still care about this video in 2 years, even 5 years? If the answer is no, you're building something disposable. Disposable content can still get views today, but it does not compound. The domains that tend to last include history, especially rise and fall stories, and then business and finance, how companies are built, how they die, bubbles, frauds, turnarounds, and then technology, and deep dives into them. And then geopolitics and power structures, psychology and human behavior, science breakthroughs plus unintended consequences, culture and institutions. The surface details change, the underlying human questions stay the same forever. Quality is not polish, it's not expensive software, it's not perfect lighting or 4K footage. Quality is coherence, clarity, guidance. Does the viewer feel like they're being led through a real story or just jumped into a pile of facts? You have to be ruthless here. If your channel becomes known for inconsistent quality, one video is great, next one's sloppy, the entire catalog effect breaks. People stop trusting that the next click is worth their time. This is also why jumping into most popular faceless niches is usually a trap. Those formats work in the short term precisely because they are easy to copy. And if something's easy to copy, it has no moat. You're in a race to the bottom on volumes and speed, and that is not business. That is a hamster wheel. A fear I hear constantly is that, but what if all good topics are already covered? The fear is normal and completely wrong. People don't watch topics, they watch stories. The fact that a subject has been covered before does not reduce demand. In many cases, it increases it. There are hundreds of documentaries about Rockefellers, the 2008 crisis, Theranos, Rome, Hitler, and new ones still get millions of views when they are done well. Your job is not to be the first. Your job is to be useful. That opens up endless directions. You could build around the rise and fall of companies, how specific technology reshape entire societies, the psychology behind power and corruption, biographies of successful people in various fields, institutional failures across history, economic bubbles and medias, scientific discoveries plus their dark side effects, crime stories in various industries and time periods. It's almost endless. The label doesn't matter. What matters is depth of story and consistency of lens. One more non-negotiable. You cannot make videos only for yourself. YouTube is not a personal diary, at least not in 2026. You are not just documenting whatever interests you this week. You're building something that serves an audience. That doesn't mean pandering or chasing trends. It means finding the overlap between what you actually know deeply, what you genuinely care enough to keep researching for years, and what an audience actually wants to understand better. Lean too far into just your own curiosity leads to risk obscurity. Lean too far into what the audience wants, risk burnt out and shallow work. The sweet spot in the middle is what creates sustainability. And this is where storytelling becomes the unfair advantage. It's the bridge between your knowledge and human intention. Conflict, stakes, uncertainty, resolution. These aren't gimmicks. They are how human brains actually process and remember information. So when you get an evergreen topics, plus consistent quality, plus real storytelling working together, something powerful happens. Your channel stops living or dying on the latest upload. Each new video makes the entire catalog stronger. Viewers start binging organically, not because you beg them to, but because the library keeps inviting them deeper. The algorithm keeps recommending older videos, not because you gamed it, but because people actually stayed. And that is a catalog strategy. It's slower out of the gate, it's less flashy, it doesn't give you instant dopamine from daily uploads, but it's durable. And if you're building this like an owner instead of a content creator, desperate for the next viral hit, durability is the only metric that actually matters. So let's keep building. Watching this right now, pause for a second and acknowledge something. You've already done more than most people ever will. Most people consume, very few commit, even fewer execute. You've gone through the frameworks, you understand the catalog model, you understand storytelling, you understand how YouTube actually works as an infrastructure. That already separates you. Now the next step is simple. Start building. Open your notebook, review your niche decision, draft your first video outline, commit to publishing. And before you move on, make sure you check the bonus resources inside the program. The 100 channel ideas list, the channel launch checklist, the workflow templates, these aren't fluff. They're meant to remove friction so you don't stall. Here's the honest truth though. Information is not a bottleneck. Implementation is. The gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it consistently is where most people fail. Not because they're incapable, but because they are alone. And that's why we offer the next level. If you don't want to execute in the isolation, if you want to direct guidance, feedback on your niche, help refining your first scripts, and a team helping you build properly, then working with us directly is the natural next step. But that only happens after you complete a 15-minute onboarding call. The call is simple. It clarifies your goals, your niche, and whether you're fit for deeper implementation support. You've come this far. Don't let the momentum fade. Start building, and if you want accountability and acceleration, book your onboarding call and let's take it to the next level. Let's start by burning down the biggest lie people tell themselves about storytelling. They talk about it like some mystical gift. You either have it or you don't. It's all about inspiration. It's creativity, vibes, artistic instinct. That framing is incredibly convenient because if storytelling is magic, then when it fails, it's not your fault. It's just bad luck. Or you weren't born talented. That belief is dead wrong. Storytelling is not magic, it's not vibes, it's not waiting to feel inspired. Underneath every story that actually holds attention, whether it's a Hollywood blockbuster or a History Channel documentary or a 20-minute YouTube video, there is a system, a structure, a set of deliberate constraints that control how attention moves through time. The fastest way to understand this is to think like an engineer. When you build a skyscraper, you don't start with, I'm feeling creative, or just start stacking steel beams randomly. You have blueprints, a foundation, load-bearing columns, redundancy for failure points, iteration after iteration until it can stand wind, earthquakes, and time. Stories work exactly the same way. A story is not a pile of facts. It's a designed experience. The blueprint is your structure. The foundation is your central conflict. Scenes are modular components. Beats are low transfers that keep everything moving. Pacing is efficiency engineering. So when a story collapses halfway through, when the retention drops off a cliff, it's almost never because of the information was bad. It's because the structure couldn't carry the weight of attention. Once you start seeing storytelling this way, everything changes. Creativity stops feeling fragile and mystical. You stop waiting to be in the zone. You start solving structural problems inside a repeatable system. That's the mental shift this entire module is built around. At the absolute center of every story that grips people is one thing: a problem. Not a topic, not a theme, not here's something interesting, a problem. This is where almost every creator screws up. They think people watch videos because they are interested in the subject. That's false. People watch because they want to see problems unfold and get resolved. The subject is just a costume the problem wears. Here's a brutal test you can run right now. Strip your video down to one sentence. If you cannot write it as X did Y to Z, causing, consequence, you don't have a story yet. You have a lecture or a Wikipedia page with voiceover. That simple sentence forces clarity. There's an agent, there's an action, there's resistance, and there are consequences. To demonstrate how universal these principles are, I want to show you a Mr. Beast video, which is not even a documentary, but it might as well be. I want you to pay attention to his way of telling a story through problem solving.
We just landed in Antarctica and we're gonna survive the next 50 hours here. We're literally at the bottom of the globe at the coldest place on Earth.
Can't wait to freeze to death.
And there goes the plane! All right, see you later. And now that that plane has left, boys, there's no way out for the next 50 hours. We're stuck.
First, we need to trek towards that mountain to get some protection from the wind.
This is the most beautiful place I've ever seen.
Shut up, Nolan.
There's already a blizzard incoming. Just our luck. The weather's so bad already. This is so bad. Holy crap. What are the odds that a blizzard would happen right when we get here?
It's cold.
Jimmy! Bro, this is insane. Let's go. We'll set up shelter at the bottom of that mountain. Woo! I almost died. Antarctica! 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 I declare this Camp Beast!
It's negative 30 degrees. And if we're gonna survive another 49 hours,
I got it! I'm 10 about flew away.
we need a shelter ASAP.
The tutorial said to go at an angle. Oh,
I don't know, like we've got it all wrong. How is it so low to the ground? It's in my sleeve!
they're like little children.
We're screwed.
Whoa, they're actually making progress.
Look at us, we're the best.
Beach camp is thriving!
A common problem in Antarctica is extreme weather blowing away your tent.
We gotta cut snow blocks to secure the tents from wind.
So, we're gonna use these ice blocks to build a wall and keep our camp
It's
safe.
literally dropped 20 degrees since we got here. We need to build the wall faster!
Holy cow. Dude, this is by far the hardest thing we've ever done.
Base camp is now finished!
Now that the ice wall is finished, hopefully the wind won't blow away our tents.
The hard part about Antarctica is the sun never goes down, so you don't know when it's night or not.
My tummy tells me.
What time does your tummy say this?
Dinner.
Welcome home, honey.
Whoa, it's ready for you.
And for dinner, we have MREs.
Jimmy, this is awful.
Welcome to Antarctica.
In case you're wondering how you eat food in the most remote place on the planet, first you boil water, then
You pour the boiling hot water, you gotta be careful in here, and then in 10 minutes you have food, and that's how you eat in Antarctica.
You don't know how good that tastes.
I'm so ready to sleep.
In my tent is Nolan and Dream, and Carl, who's in yours? It's me, Chandler, South Avenue. You're going to bed, right? Yeah.
I'm so tired. I'm sick. Antarctica, not a good place to get sick in.
Jimmy has no idea we're digging a tunnel. Oh my god.
It's just so crazy how he's so far down.
Jimmy, I don't think I'm gonna make it 50 hours.
The wind is picking up, so we're gonna have a hard time sleeping. All right, guys, well, Brofist out.
the sun literally never goes down in Antarctica, so night one was rough.
It's the next morning, and I don't know if I'm supposed to get out of bed or not, because the sun's just always up.
Morning one, this is miserable.
Bro, Antarctica is not a fun place. I'm sick, man. I woke up coughing up blood.
Before you can leave your tent in Antarctica, you need long pants, a long sleeve shirt,
A second pair of pants, a third pair of pants, a jacket for your jacket, a ski mask, whatever this is, gloves for your gloves, and goggles so your eyeballs don't freeze. Just by having all this on, I can still get frostbite.
Going into day two, there were two very important things we needed to take care of. Number one,
In Antarctica, you would think you could just pee in the snow, but you can't. So we have to pee in these bottles and hold on to it until the end of the video. It's negative 20 degrees. Let's see if I can pee. Hey, I got it. He did it. I got it. Nice. Whew, that took like 5 minutes.
and number two.
A lot of the boys have to poop, so we're going away from camp to set up a poop tent. I gotta poop.
The worst part about Antarctica is that giant blizzards would randomly sweep through, and they would cause your skin to literally start freezing.
Hold it down. Stay down, Tim. Oh, it worked. This bucket is my toilet, and that's the bathroom. I'm gonna come out a better man.
Nolan, how is it?
That was the worst experience of my life.
See that mountain right there?
Yes!
It currently does not have a name, and everyone knows that if you climb a mountain, you get to name it. Who wants to join me?
I'll just grab my stuff out of the tent really quick.
Okay.
I left something in my tip.
The weather's kind of bad.
Come on.
I just have to...
Hey,
You're climbing the mountain with me.
Just because I'm the last one here?
I need someone to be hooked up to in case I fall.
Well, I'm glad it's not windy.
Seriously, since that mountain isn't named, if we climb it, we literally get to name it whatever we want.
Bye, guys!
Bye! Bye!
Now, Operation Hole. Come on. For the past 20-something hours, we've been digging this hole. By the time Jimmy's back, this is gonna be massive, 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 massive.
We're not even at the mountain and we faced our first obstacle. It's a sea of ice.
Look at this view.
On the surface, surviving in Antarctica, that's not the story. The real story is a chain of escalating problems. Can they even survive the environment? Then the wind starts shredding the camp. And then food becomes a nightmare. Then sleep gets messed up because the sun never sets. Then even going to the bathroom turns into a ridiculous survival challenge. Every time they solve a problem, a new, nastier one appears. So that progression is not random, it's engineered. Here's the insight that unlocks everything. Stories are sequences of problems that escalate. If your video doesn't introduce a clear problem early, escalate it in a meaningful way, and resolve it so the situation actually changes, attention dies fast. Information by itself creates zero momentum. Problems create momentum. The single most common failure mode in documentary style YouTube is what I called Wikipedia writing. The creator knows a ton about the subject, so they dump facts in a chronological order and pray interest magically appears. It never does. The human brain needs orientation. It needs to know what's at stake right now, what changed, and why it matters. So there's this famous author I really like. His name is called Robert McKee. And his big insight wasn't about fiction. It applies even harder to nonfiction. A story works when the situation at the end is meaningfully different from the situation at the beginning. So if you can rearrange paragraphs in your script and nothing important breaks, you don't have a story, you have a list. Structure is what turns a pile of information into an experience the brain actually remembers. Once you truly accept that storytelling is structural, not magical, storyboarding stops being some optional artsy step. It becomes a straight-up engineering tool. Think about real engineering for a second. You don't just start pouring concrete and stacking steel beams and hope the skyscraper doesn't fall over. You prototype, you test load paths, you isolate components, you deliberately find and kill weak points before they can kill the whole project. Storyboarding does exactly the same thing for narrative. Here is how I actually use it. After I've done the deep research, read the books, dug through the primary sources, taken pages of notes, I don't jump straight into writing a full script. First, I make a simple list of all the major story beats, usually 15 to 25 for a longer video, around 20 for a 40-minute piece. Then I force myself to answer one question for every single transition between beats. Does this move forward with a real change? A reveal? A twist? A reversal? A lie exposed? Something that makes the viewer think, wait, what happens next? So if the answer is no, if it just and then this happened, and then that happened, I flag it. Because that's what engagement actually is. A chain of small, I need to know more moments. The storyboard isn't sacred. You don't need beautiful drawings or software. A Google Doc, Notion page, or even a piece of paper with bullet points works just fine. The only job is to let you know and see the structure clearly before you've invested weeks scripting and editing so you can spot the flat sections and fix them early. Is it mandatory? No. But once you start using it, going without feels reckless. For YouTube creators especially, this mindset shift is incredibly liberating. Failure stops being personal. It stops being, I'm not creative enough, or I suck at this. It becomes purely diagnostic. When you treat storyboarding this way, you stop being at the mercy of inspiration. You start building stories that are structurally sound from the beginning. And that changes everything downstream. The most toxic myth in all of creative work is that writer's block is emotional. It's not. Writer's block happens when you try to solve 4 cognitive problems at the same time. What's the structure? How do I phrase this beautifully? What's the pacing? And what's the deeper meaning? The brain overloads, system freezes. The fix is a separation of concerns. You don't write beautifully first, you design first. Step 1, define the core problem. Step 2, map the overall story. Step 3, sketch scenes and keep beats. Step 4, identify where tension rises and where it releases. Only then do you worry about language. Ugly first drafts are not failure, they are a feature. In engineering, nobody expects the first prototype to be elegant. They expect it to function. Writing works the same way. The first draft is just assembly. The second, third, fourth drafts are optimization phases. When you adopt this mindset, writing stops feeling like a vulnerable self-expression. It starts feeling like a problem solving. And problem solving scales. When I started applying this engineering mindset to my own documentaries, whether it was Jamie Dimon or Renaissance Technologies or Institutional Power, Bubbles, frauds, the difference was immediate. Not because the raw information changed, but because the experience changed. Research became raw material, not the final product. Facts existed to serve the narrative arc, not dominate it. Every section had a clear job. Every transition increased pressure. That's why the scripts don't feel like Wikipedia articles read out loud. They move, they pull, they create momentum that carries people to the end. And here's the single most important takeaway of this whole module. Creativity explodes when constraints are clear. When you know the system, you're freed inside it. When you don't, everything feels fragile and terrifying. Storytelling, when treated as engineering, stops being intimidating. It becomes repeatable, teachable, scalable. And that's exactly why this system sits at the center of the entire course. Next module, we take this structure and slams it straight into the writing process. Not theory, but practice, so that output becomes inevitable instead of occasional. So let's keep going. Most people get editing completely wrong. They think that it's about polish, making things look slick, adding fancy transitions, keeping the pace snappy, or hitting some vague idea of professional. It's just incomplete. Editing is not decoration. Editing is attention management. Every single cut, every sound choice, every frame duration answers one brutal question. Is the viewer still inside the story world right now? Yes? Edit worked. No? Doesn't matter how cinematic it looked, you lost them. The only principle that actually matters is this. Do whatever it takes to keep the viewer inside the story. That sometimes means adding foley sounds that were never recorded. It means cutting earlier than feels comfortable. It means lingering on a single shot longer than feels right, because the emotion needs room to breathe.
It began at exactly 9 o'clock. A statement by President Harry S. Truman in the White House that he'd been notified by General Eisenhower from his headquarters in Paris that the forces of Germany had surrendered to the Allied nation.
The Japanese have accepted our terms fully. That is the word we have just received from the White House in Washington, and I didn't expect to hear a celebration here in our newsroom in New York, but you can hear one going on behind me.
In documentaries especially, visuals are not there to show what the narrator is saying. They're there to make the story feel lived in instead of explained. A single well-placed sound, a door clicking shot, a paper shuffling, distant machinery running can do more for immersion than 10 seconds of perfect exposition. And sometimes using static image, just one image, is more powerful than some fancy edit. And we'll talk about that in a minute. When editing is truly great, the viewer doesn't notice it. They don't see cuts. They don't hear music swells. They just feel carried. And that's the goal. Once you accept that editing equals immersion engineering, the next question becomes a bit practical. What the hell do I actually put on screen at this exact moment? Most creators freeze here, or worse, they fall back on lazy habits. Some stock clips looped forever, random B-roll because something has to move, letting visuals trail 3 seconds behind the narration. That's not editing, that's filler. A real system means every visual category solves specific narrative job. And here's the clean breakdown you can actually use. Numbers kill immersion unless they are translated fast. A good chart turns 5 sentences of explanation into a 2-second oh shit moment. So here's a rule. Calm, legible, slow enough to read. No over-the-top animations. Their job is clarity, not excitement. If a number is worth saying out loud, it's worth showing visually. Otherwise, it's just noise. And then there's stock B-rolls. Use it when the narration is talking about general environments, social contexts, or broad actions. And here's a rule. If the narration is abstract, the visual grounds it. And if the narration is very concrete, visual reinforces without stealing focus. Now let's talk about AI-generated scenes. AI isn't about photorealism. It's about plausible dramatization when no real footage exists. Boardroom conspiracies, private late-night calculations, hypothetical futures, symbolic power moves. If the script says a meeting far from a public view, there's probably no archival clip, but the story still needs a visual anchor. AI lets you create atmosphere and intention without pretending it's a documentary evidence. So here's the rule. Stay honest, representational, not deceptive. Suggest moved and stakes, never fake reality. And then there's map animations. Anytime the story moves, expansion, migration, influence, reach, a simple map pins it down. One animated line or pin drop can replace an entire paragraph of describing all kinds of locations. Maps aren't about beauty, they're about spatial continuity. And then, news screenshots and headlines. These say this wasn't made up. Real people saw it. Institutions reacted. Use them to punctuate key turning points. Investigations, leaks, public reactions, subtle zoom, highlight, or underline guide attention without turning the video into a slideshow. And then there's still images. People, places, objects introduce the image as the name is spoken. And lastly, there's a talking head to provide context, authority, and human anchor. Showing your face is optional, but when used strategically, it's powerful. Here are some moments to use a talking head. Contextualizing why something matters. Reframing a complex idea. Marking emotional transitions, just overall providing context or reactions. Humans mirror faces, a raised eyebrow, a pause, a quiet disbelief. These carry meaning faster than words. You don't need to be on screen constantly. Overuse dilutes impact. Sparse, deliberate appearances build long-term trust and brand memory. And then there are overlaid quotes and cinematic text. They are here to have emphasis, not redundancy. So text is punctuation. Use it to crystallize a killer line or a statement that deserves weight. And then there's archival footage. And the whole purpose is to say that this actually happened. And they're used for speeches, crises, public turning points. And then there are symbolic or metaphorical sequences. So the subject matter of my channel is finance. So I often have to create abstract ideas like mergers. I just typically show 2 building models on top of a desk. And then there's these acquisitions that there's like bidding wars. All these are abstract. Sometimes I use 3D to show them in an abstract and metaphorical style. Now let's talk about whether to show your face or not. There are two myths that need to die. Myth 1, you must show your face to grow on YouTube. That's false. Plenty of huge channels are faceless. Myth 2, showing your face adds nothing. That's also false. The truth is, it's situational, and when it works hard. 3 real advantages. First, context and interpretation. You guide how to feel about the story without dictating it. And second, you show your face to react. As a reaction, humans read faces instantly. A subtle look carries emotion faster than narration. Third, as a brand anchor, over months and years, people will begin to trust your content because your face, You don't need to be charismatic. You need to be clear. Calm, confident delivery often beats high energy yelling. Editing is where most stories quietly die. It's not technical, it's a narrative. It's the last line of defense for immersion. When it's done right, the viewer forgets that they're watching video. Cuts disappear. Music fades into feeling. Time stops registering. And they're just inside. And that's the win. And here is the counterintuitive truth most people miss. Great editing doesn't always mean constant motion or flashy techniques. Sometimes a single static image, held just long enough, paired with the right voice and the right silence, is more powerful than 20 fancy cuts. Millions of people read graphic novels, literally still images and text, and feel completely immersed. Why? Because when the story and language are strong, you don't need visual noise. Simple images, thoughtful pacing, and voice alone can carry everything. Master that restraint and your editing stops being production value. It becomes unbreakable immersion. And next module, we'll zoom out, talk about production systems, outsourcing, workflows, scaling without burning out. But none of it matters if the viewer checks out halfway through the video. Editing is where immersion becomes real or dies forever. So let's keep going. To research a subject, I usually start with books. I'll read 1 or 2 core books on the topic, sometimes 3 or 4 if it's dense. I almost always go for Kindle or PDF so that I can search, highlight, and put quotes quickly. These days, I also lean on AI tools, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, to summarize specific chapters, timelines, or themes, not to replace reading, but to compress time. I still read important parts myself because depth matters. But I'll jump back and forth between my own reading and AI-assisted overviews. It lets me move faster without losing the feel for the material. Think of AI as a very fast research assistant who can surface contradictions, opposing views, economic context, or political background in minutes instead of days. After a solid day or 2 of this kind of immersion, something shifts. I stop thinking in disconnected facts or start thinking in story pressure. I can feel where the stakes rise, where the reversal hide, where the emotional weight actually lands. And that's when I know I'm ready to move on. Once I'm immersed, I don't jump straight into writing a full script. I do something much simpler and far more important. Just like I talked about before, I outline the core story beats. I usually aim for around 20 major beats. These aren't polished scenes yet. They are structural anchors. Each one answers a single question. What changes here? What shifts the stakes? This is another place where AI is useful. I'll dump all my rough notes into Grok, and ask it to reorder them, cluster similar ideas, and stress test weak spots, not to decide the structure for me, but to help me see where something feels redundant or flat so I can cut it early. You always have to be involved yourself, because AI at this point cannot structure a really engaging narrative. At this stage, I am still not writing prose. I'm engineering the skeleton. When I finally start writing, I write badly on purpose. I don't chase beautiful sentences. I don't worry about rhythm yet. I just want existence. I take each beat and expand it into a rough narration. Facts, action, transitions, everything dumbed out without judgment. This is where AI becomes a real force multiplier. I'll feed those ugly drafts back into the model and ask it to fix grammars and make the sentence sound more epic. What I would never ask for it to do is write this in my voice from scratch. That almost always feels fake. Instead, I treat it like a ruthless editor. It polishes and rearranges what I already put down. I'm also very deliberate about separating roles in a script. A narrator handles depicting events, stating facts, moving the story forward. And then there's talking heads. Sometimes it's my talking heads, sometimes other people's talking heads, where I will find on YouTube or in documentaries. So a talking head handle context, interpretation, reaction, moral or strategic framing. So after a few days of back and forth iteration, the script usually stabilizes around 20 scenes. At that density, I can pretty reliably predict runtime. So roughly 40 minutes. That predictability isn't luck. It comes from repeating the same structure process over and over. Once the script is locked, I do one step that saves me enormous time later. I plan visuals before I even open the editing software. So I go through the script sentence by sentence and ask one question. What is the most effective visual form for this line right now? Sometimes it's a static image, sometimes it's archival footage, sometimes it's a map animation, sometimes a symbolic 3D scene, and sometimes just a text on screen. This isn't about forcing variety, it's about matching visual intensity to narrative need. Static images get slapped on way too much. Most people want to avoid static images, but when the narration is strong, a well-chosen still footage can be incredibly powerful. Motion isn't always required. Clarity and emotional weight are. For AI-generated visuals, I'm careful. YouTube has gotten stricter and audience are more skeptical. I stick to stylized, atmospheric looks. So what I mean by that is that use AI to generate highly stylized scenes instead of try to replicate real scenarios. My typical flow for AI visuals is generate a stylized base image, using tools like Google Nano Banana, Midjourney, and turn it into subtle motion like Runway, Clean, or Google Flow. Third, keep the movement minimal, just enough to feel alive without being distracting. So this creates a depth fast without huge production overhead. For 3D scenes that really help a video stand out, I don't try to do it all myself. I outsource to talented freelancers on Fiverr, Upwork, or through referrals. You don't need to master Unreal Engine. You do need to have taste and restraint. And to be very clear, 3D is completely optional. It is an enhancer, not a requirement. Plenty of strong documentaries live on still images, maps, archival, and voice alone. Voice narration is where I get very pragmatic. I do use AI voice tools like ElevenLabs. They're impressive, and voice cloning has gotten scary good. And I'm careful about going full synthetic. So there's subtle human texture that get lost when everything's artificial. My current setup is hybrid. About half the narration is me recording directly, and the rest may use an AI voice clone or tuned close to mine to pronounce certain words, to say certain things correctly. Combined with real talking head segments, the overall feel stays human. So pure AI can sound slick, but very hollow and very robotic. Pure human is time consuming, and oftentimes you can't really say everything correctly, you know? So the hybrid gives speed without completely sacrificing authenticity. So I edit in DaVinci Resolve, not because it's a coolest tool, but because it's stable, powerful, and doesn't fight me. My project structure is deliberately boring. On separate folders for narration, talking heads, B-rolls, archival, music, and etc. Because visuals are already planned and mostly created, editing becomes assembly, not discovery. So I drop narration in first, then layer visuals scene by scene. There's very little hunting around. So the actual editing stays simple. I'm not chasing fancy transitions or effects. I am protecting pacing and clarity. If something feels slow, I cut earlier. If something feels rushed, I let it breathe. So the earlier structure work makes this phase fast. So the story already works on paper. Music is the final layer and is overused more than almost anything else. My only real rules regarding music are it must never fight the narration. It should build underlying tension, not force emotion. I use AI-generated music sometimes, epidemic sounds other times, doesn't matter. What matters is restraint. I often put sharp drops or turns in the music at the chapter boundaries. So those little resets help viewers feel movement even before they consciously notice the new section. So music is support, never the star. So the real takeaway, this is a factory, not a ritual. Here's the most important thing to understand about this whole workflow. It's not fragile. It doesn't depend on motivation. It doesn't depend on inspiration. It doesn't depend on feeling on that day. It's a production system. You can simplify it when you're short on time. You can outsource parts when you have budget. You can accelerate it with AI. You can slow it down when you want more depth. But the core stays the same. Research, structure, rough writing, visuals, assembly. That's how you produce consistently without burning out. Most people treat titles and thumbnails like marketing weapons. And that framing is already wrong. And it's why so many channels end up looking desperate, spammy, or burnt out from constant clickbait cycles. Titles and thumbnails are not marketing. They are story compression. Their only job is to take a 40-minute story and squeeze it into a single sharp promise, a single question, a single piece of unresolved tension. Think about it this way. If the documentary is a novel, the title and thumbnail are the book cover. If the video is the film, they are the poster hanging outside the theater. A great poster doesn't explain the entire movie. It suggests it. It makes you feel something before you've seen a single frame. That's the mindset shift you need. Stop thinking, how do I trick someone into clicking? Start thinking, how do I compress this entire story into one irresistible frame and one irresistible sentence? Discovery works differently for documentary-style channels than it does for entertainment, vlogs, or personality content. Entertainment lives or dies on browse features and shorts. Documentaries live on search, to browse, to suggested. People don't open YouTube looking for fun or entertainment when they search for a documentary. They search because they want to understand something. Who was this person lately? And how did this company or empire or system actually collapse? The real story behind events, scandal, or rise. That's why starting titles with subject name works so powerfully. So when your title is something like Name and the $10 trillion empire that shouldn't exist, documentary, you're doing two things at once. You're capturing real search intent. You know, people literally type the name, right? And second, you're making a bold narrative claim that creates tension. You know, search brings the first viewers. The boldness triggers browse and suggested. And once YouTube sees people clicking and staying, the algorithm starts doing the heavy lifting for you. This title structure isn't random. It mirrors how serious nonfiction books, biographies, or prestige films have been titled for decades. The pattern is simple and repeatable. So you start with a subject name, and then extreme or impressive claim, and then documentary. So why it keeps working? The name anchors in reality and search. The claim introduces scale, mystery, danger, or impossibility. And in the end, documentary signals depth, seriousness. And this isn't a clickbait fluff, you know? Words like the biggest, most powerful, untold, trillion, empire, collapse, machine, shadow aren't tricks. They are genre signals. They tell the viewer exactly what kind of experience they're about to get. So the only rule is restraint. One extreme claim is enough. If everything in a title is screaming, nothing stands out. So your title should feel like the cover of a hardcover nonfiction book, not a BuzzFeed listicle. If titles compress the story into words, thumbnails compress it into a single image. The biggest mistake documentary creators make is treating thumbnails like UI widgets. Red arrows, yellow circles, shocked faces, giant text blocks. The style works great for certain genres, but it actively hurts serious long-form documentary channels. For documentaries, the thumbnail should be like a cinematic frame, you know, something that could hang on a Netflix or HBO landing page. Ask yourself this one question. Before you start designing, if this were a Netflix series or a prestige documentary, would this image belong on the platform? That's the bar. A strong documentary thumbnail tells a micro story in one frozen moment, implies conflict, stakes, or mystery, feels composed, intentional, still, looks like a real frame and not a meme. So you're not designing a banner, you're choosing the frame. You never design in a vacuum. Before you create anything original, study other YouTube thumbnails on the exact same topic. Netflix documentary posters, History Channel key arts, A24, HBO, or BBC documentary posters. You are not copying content, you are learning the visual grammar. So look for color palettes that feel serious and cinematic, framing, center figure versus off-center tension, how many elements are in the frame, faces versus objects versus scale contrast, emotional tone, clean versus chaotic composition. Every great thumbnail implies the whole story before anyone clicks. And this step gives you a baseline so you don't accidentally design something that looks amateur when the genre already has a strong conventions. Go one layer deeper. Look outside YouTube entirely. Look for classic film stills, iconic movie posters, famous photography compositions, graphic novel panels. You are mining for compositional ideas, not stealing content. When you use AI for thumbnails, the biggest mistake is treating it like a vending machine. Just type make thumbnail and hope. Instead, treat it like a junior art director who needs clear direction. AI is great at breadth and variation. You provide the taste and final judgment. Never fall in love with the first version. You should always produce 3 to 4 distinct concepts, different framing, different emotional cues, different symbols or focal points. The gut test. So the final choice isn't analytical, it's primal. Shrink the thumbnails down to mobile size, view them out of context, scroll past them quickly, and then ask, which one pulls my eyes first? Which one feels like a real film or a prestige documentary? Which one raises the question instantly? Which one feels inevitable, like I have to click? Your lizard brain isn't stupid. It's trained on thousands of years of visual pattern recognition. And let it vote. Consistency beats cleverness. Over time, titles, thumbnails aren't just about single clicks. They build brand expectation. When people see your consistent structure and visual language again and again, they know exactly what they're getting. So Packaging is part of the story. The biggest mistake serious creators make is treating thumbnails and title like something separate from the storytelling itself. They are not separate. They are the first chapter. A great documentary with a weak thumbnail dies quietly in the feed. A strong thumbnail with a weak documentary burns trust fast. So the goal is perfect alignment. The promise matches the experience. When that happens, the channel compounds naturally. That's not growth hacking. That's authorship. Let's keep going. Look, everything we covered in this course is designed to get you from zero to real compounding YouTube asset. But knowing the system is only half the battle. The other half is actually doing it consistently, week after week, without getting stuck or second guessing yourself. If you want to shortcut the lonely parts, I've got something that can help. So I run a private coaching community where we take people through this exact process, step by step. You'll have accountability partners who keep you moving. We'll be there to brainstorm ideas with you, review your titles and thumbnails, help you pick topics that actually have legs, get feedback on scripts, structure your workflow, and guide you through setting up the whole channel so it doesn't feel overwhelming. So it's not a course you buy or forget about. It's a group of serious people building together with direct support every step of the way. So, you've already done the hard part. You've invested the time to learn the real system. Now, let's make it happen. I'll see you inside if you're ready. Let's build something that lasts. Thanks for going through the whole course with me. Now go make your first YouTube video. Check in the link below. We'll talk soon.
All right, you've seen what's possible. You've seen where I started. You've seen where this goes when you do it right. Now let me cover the overall strategy for a YouTube business so that you will have a sense of direction when you start. Here's the shift you need to make, and I mean this literally. YouTube is not just a creative platform. YouTube is an ecosystem. Channels are organisms. Viewer attention is the resource everyone competes for. The algorithm is the environment. It's the selection pressure that decides who thrives and who goes extinct. Once you see it this way, everything changes. You stop thinking about what video should I make and start thinking about which ecological position gives me the best chance of survival. That's a completely different question, and it has a completely different answer. You're not an artist trying to express yourself. You're a strategist trying to occupy a defensible position in a competitive ecosystem. Let me make this concrete. There are 4 elements in the YouTube ecosystem, and they map perfectly onto biology. Channels are organisms. Just like animals in a habitat, they're competing for survival. Some thrive, most don't. Viewer attention is the resource. It's finite. Niches are habitats. A niche isn't just a topic. It's a specific combination of audience, format, emotional need, and content structure that a channel can occupy to sustain itself. Just like a forest has different niches for different species, the canopy, the understory, the forest floor, YouTube has different niches for different channels, and the algorithm is the environment. It's the set of selection pressures that determine which organisms thrive. It doesn't play favorites. It rewards channels that produce satisfaction and penalizes channels that don't. That's natural selection applied to content. Once you internalize this metaphor, every strategy I'm about to teach you will make intuitive sense, because they're all borrowed from the same disciplines that explain how ecosystems actually work. So how do you actually find niches? Here's the practical process. 4 steps. Step 1. Create 2 or 3 fresh YouTube accounts. Not for channels, but for research. Open them in clean browsers and start training them by watching content aimed at demographics you don't belong to. If you're a 28-year-old guy, you need to be watching what 55-year-old women watch, what retirees watch, what hobbyist communities watch. You're training the algorithm to show you the parts of YouTube that your normal browsing would never reveal. Step 2. Watch with depth. Don't skim. Finish videos. Subscribe to channels. Like the high performers, let playlists run. You're giving the recommendation system a clear signal profile so it surfaces the content clusters where demand exists, but supply is thin. Step 3. After 3 to 5 days of this, your homepage starts looking completely different. You'll see channels you've never heard of, formats you didn't know existed. And critically, you'll see small channels pulling huge view counts. That's the signal. Once you've spotted a potential niche, you need to validate it. I use 6 laws. Every niche I enter has to pass all 6. If it fails even one, I walk away. I want you to look at 2 particular ones. Law 5, adaptive radiation. Take proven formats from one niche and adapt them to another. Don't invent from scratch. Law 6, gratification alignment. Match your production capabilities to what your target audience actually needs psychologically. Adaptive radiation is when one ancestral species rapidly diversifies into many new forms, each adapted to a different habitat. Darwin's finches are the textbook case. One bird arrived on the Galapagos and became 13 species, each with a different beak for a different food source. On YouTube, this is the safest way to find a niche. Don't invent a new format from scratch. Innovation is a high-variance bet with terrible expected value for most operators. Instead, take a format that's already proven and adapt it to a different habitat. The true crime investigation format gets adapted into corporate disaster deep dives. Same narrative structure, different subject matter. Community exploration docs about Amish life get adapted into World War II prisoner daily routines. Same emotional cadence, different world. Engineering explainers get adapted into hidden systems that run the world. In every case, you're not guessing whether the format works. You already know it works. You're only testing whether it works in this specific new habitat. That's a fundamentally lower risk bet. The unique twist that practitioners talk about, that's the adaptive beak. It's the modification that lets the ancestral format survive in the new environment. I could spend an entire day just talking about all these 6 laws, but I won't go deeper on each of these, but they're the backbone of everything. Instead, I will show you some case studies. Here's how the theory plays out in practice, 2 completely different people. But before diving deeper into them, we need to look at 2 ways to operate on YouTube, and we're going to use the analogy of ecology again. R/K selection. In ecology, organisms fall on a spectrum between 2 reproductive strategies. Our strategists produce many offspring with minimal investment per offspring. Think sea turtles. Hundreds of hatchlings scramble toward the ocean. Most get eaten. The survivors carry the species. Our selection dominates in unstable, opportunity-rich environments. K strategists produce few offspring with heavy investment per offspring. Think elephants. 1 calf every 4 to 5 years. Years of protection. Survival rate is very high. K selection dominates in stable environments with intense competition. On YouTube, the R strategist launches 8 channels simultaneously. Each one costs $200 to $400. Most fail. The ones that survive generate $5,000 to $15,000 per month each. The portfolio math works because the survivors more than cover the dead. The K strategist builds one channel with deep quality, brand identity, editorial voice, and habit architecture. Growth is slower, but the channel becomes a durable, defensible asset that compounds for years. Neither is universally better. Your environment and your resources determine which one to use. The YouTube landscape in 2026 is volatile. That actually favors R selection. But if you only have $500, R selection isn't feasible. Your constraints determine your strategy. And the optimal career arc actually moves from K to R to K again. You start methodical, scale through portfolio testing, then invest deeply in your best performing channels. Let's put them side by side because this is where the entire point lands. Marcus started with $500, Chantel started with $10,000, Marcus built 1 channel, Shantae built 7, Marcus has 2 VAs, Chantel has 4. Marcus generates $10,000 to $20,000 a month, Chantel generates $25,000 to $45,000. Both work under 8 hours a week, but look at the bottom 2 rows. Marcus's advantage is compounding depth. His single channel gets stronger with every video, harder for competitors to displace. His risk is a single point of failure. If that one niche declines, he's exposed. Chantel's advantage is portfolio diversification. No single niche decline can hurt her. Her risk is operational complexity. Managing 7 channels and 4 VAs requires real project management discipline. You start as Marcus, learn the system, prove 1 channel, then you become Chantel, scale through parallel testing, build the portfolio, and that's the game. And by then, you will own a YouTube business with multiple channels, and you have to think like an editor-in-chief. You don't have to do the work yourself, but you gotta be really good at the craft and understanding what makes a channel popular, such as the storytelling system, the writing, and the art of editing, and they will all be covered in this course if you haven't seen them yet.